Hello everybody, I'm Eric. Welcome back to my railway hairfield. If you're joining me after watching my last couple of videos, then thank you very much for doing so, and I appreciate all the comments that were left. Some of you had some great ideas, some ideas which I already had, which hopefully we'll put into place shortly. But it was great to hear your thoughts and feedback, so thank you very much for that. But in any case, it's about time I cracked on and stopped waffling. So in this update, you would have seen the last one. I got that area sorted out. You would have seen the Tim scale video as well, where I got the cable arches and cable runs sorted, as well as the train stops in, which is really cool. So now I want to start getting over this side. And the first thing that I want to do is something that's been bugging me for ages. The more I look at it, the worse it looks. And it's all of this foliage on the back. I want to try and save the static grass on this area of the layout. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling all of this clump foliage off. So that's the idea. I'm going to clear all that off. I'm going to static grass this centerpiece to sort of blend it all together, and then we're going to go from there and see how we get on. I also want to maybe make a start on that side of the layout where I need to put an embankment in at the front, and then get the arches sorted out and the bridge in and get that inner track running. So I think they're going to be my sort of goals for the end of this video. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. I suppose you'll know how long it's taken by the release date of this. But in any case, let's crack on. So as I say, I'm going to pull all this off. I've just made a start in this centre area, and you can see how much better it looks already. And it sort of matches up there quite a lot, especially if I come in here with the Hoover. That'll clean up some of this random dark green scatter that's everywhere. Worst case, we can sort of pick that off, and then maybe even go over with another layer of static grass to hide it all. But yeah, I'm going to crack on and do this. Luckily, most of it's PVA down, and PVA doesn't really work with clump foliage. So in the bin it all goes. You can see how easy it all just comes up. Right, well that's all that lot gone. So as it's 1 in the morning currently, as I'm filming this, when it's daylight tomorrow, to save annoying the neighbours, then I'll come back with a Hoover and hoover all the rubbish off, because you can see there's still loads of foliage and sort of scatter over it. So that should clean it up nicely. And then I'll get this bit of static grass now, I think, ready for tomorrow. And hopefully it'll be looking a little bit better. Right, so I've made a complete and utter mess on the floor now. So that is the base layer of grass. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the layering spray and just spray little local areas, and then keep filling it in with the thicker stuff, then going over the top again and again and again. And then when I'm happy with the finish, we'll finish off with some little flowers and sprinkles of scatter in the middle, just to sort of give some variation. So there we go, that's in place. You can see why I use a couple bits of wood. There's still a load of mess on the floor / carpet, but most of the glue is all on the wood. So that should all just hoover up tomorrow when I bring the Hoover down here. So you can see from there, it doesn't look too bad. That's without any scatter or flowers or anything put over it to match what's going on over there, because obviously we've got the dark patches and little flashes of colour. But that's not too bad. I'm fairly happy with how that looks at the minute. The station building, obviously, we've got to do something with that. I don't know whether that's going to stay or not, but I did like the idea of having the little cutout there to have a little building down in the distance from the station, just for something a bit different, so it's not all just plain boring straight platform. Right then, sorted. Next job. This keeps bugging me because it doesn't go anywhere. So I've got some plastercloth over here to sort of smooth it out or whatever, and I'm going to chuck some polyfiller over it and smooth it out further. And fingers cross, cross yours for us, that this will be dry for tomorrow. I've got the cabin quite warm tonight, so hopefully overnight it will go off. Right, there you go, that's that filled with polyfiller. Now it's 2 o'clock in the morning, so I probably better go to bed. And then tomorrow I'll come back and I will sand this all smooth, and hopefully it won't look quite such an eyesore. If I really can't get it to a stage where I'm happy, then I might well take the top layer of this back off again and smooth it down even more gradual. But we'll see. I'll do what I can to save what's there, just because it's a lot easier. And then, yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, so I will see you tomorrow. Right, I had a nice sleep, and today's the day. Let's do it. So got that smoothed off in the end. Had to use another layer of filler after all that, and then just mix some paint up to sort of match this roof dirt colour, as well as use the dregs of my roof dirt paint just to blend it a little. And yeah, it doesn't look too bad now that it's the same sort of colour. Sort of gives the impression that the car park's pretty much flat, but then the sort of scenery raises up again, obviously to sort of blend in with that. And you would just about get another bit of track down here, I suppose, back in the day. But yeah, I'm fairly pleased with that. The only thing is, you'll notice along the front of my layout, there's this sort of step. Why I did this in the first place, I don't know. It goes back from basically when I built the first bridge at that end, because this is the second version. It was in a bit further, and then I basically built the scenery to match that, and then I don't know why I did it, and I sort of come to realise, hang on, I've got a gap here. And it's just continued all the way along. So what I'll do at some stage, I'll put a fascia on, because of course I need a fascia that goes up the level of the scenery anyway. So when the fascia goes on, then I'll basically use some sort of either expanding foam or something like that to go down in the gap, and then I'll just come along with a little bit more static grass and like here a bit of filler to blend in the road and stuff like that, and then it should be seamless. So if any of you are wondering what the deal with all that is, don't overly worry. It will be sorted out at some point. But yeah, these, obviously, I haven't got the final fascias on the boards yet, as you'll notice. So that's just one thing to explain. But yeah, so that's looking all right. I'm quite pleased with that now. Obviously, I need to do some more markings and things like that and sort of tie it in. I've got to do some more static grass along here. I've got to weather this bit of track, put some fourth rail in, and continue the fence. The fence is gonna follow the road, so that I'm not using a 10 ton of the stuff, because otherwise it'll have to go the whole length of the layout, and it also means you can't get a camera in the way sometimes. But for now, you know what I'm like. I like doing a million projects at once to keep myself interested. So I've moved on to around this side. If you look here, you'll see a bridge has appeared. Now this is made out of some scraps I have left over from L-Cut Creative from doing all of this. This is actually going to be a canal. So if you look in the cabin up this side, this is a poster that James very kindly gave to me from Steam on the Met in 1993. Which is really cool. This is the curve where this way is sort of Moore Park and this curves off towards Watford, and then you've got the Met loco going towards Rickmansworth. So if you'll notice, there's a set of points, obviously, and there's a canal, and then you've got the divergent junction. We've got the Metropolitan loco with the dreadnoughts, or bogey stock, whatever you want to call them. Dreadnoughts is just a bit of a nickname. And then this nice loco here. So I figured I couldn't decide what to do over here. Then I thought about it, but the real location of Harefield over here is the Grand Union Canal. So now I'm sat here thinking, what should I do here in this space to fill it up? And I'm looking at this picture thinking, oh, why not, you know? So yeah, we're going to have the canal there. Obviously the points in that photo that I just showed you are on this side of the bridge, but here they're going to be on that side. What can you do? So the canal's going to come out here. It's going to curve straight round so that it comes off the baseboard here to give me enough room here. I'm going to obviously put two more bits of the bridge on that side. It won't all have to be connected up underneath. That won't matter, because I'm going to put a mirror under there so that when you look through, it looks like the canal carries on into the distance. So I'll just basically glue the bridge supports on at the top there somewhere. And then coming down here, you'll see I've put some foam in and some wood on the bottom. To explain the wood, obviously I've got to put a canal piling in. The piling is about 25mm tall, I think, roughly. I'm going to use the scale model scenery stuff. It's just, yeah, I think it's 25mm. And I looked around for some scraps of wood, what I had left, and I had this 15mm stuff left, which is what I built the new platforms with over there. So I figured 15mm, I've only got to drop down, if I have the piling here, it's only got to drop down 10mm to meet this level. So hence that is that height, because this I'll fill in with polystyrene and use the wire cutter and all that. But my idea here is to sort of recreate Willesden F sidings. We can jokingly call them E sidings, obviously E for Eric, goes without saying. So we'll just have 2 sidings here for my ballast trains, because I've got a couple ballast trains. I'm slowly collecting wagons for a nice couple rakes, which will be about sort of 10 to 12 wagons each. So the idea is that eventually the trains will come along the main line, they'll come down the incline where the tube stock is, they'll come round to this very messy board we won't talk about, then they'll go into a head shunt, and then they'll back in here. So you'll back one half of the train in this road, then you'll pull out and you'll back the other half of the train in this road, and then they'll unload that half of the train, and then once that half is unloaded or loaded, whatever, you pull that half out, connect it onto this half, and then swap it over to put the other half in here, and then form the train up, whatever. So that'd be pretty cool. So basically the idea is to have a low relief little ballast yard. Now, if I put a picture in of Google Earth of Willesden F sidings, you'll kind of get the idea. So you'll see that there's the 2 lines going down. There is one over the back that we'll have to kind of ignore. But yeah, it gives you the sort of idea. It's a thin sort of yard, and it's just stepped down from the main line. So obviously this is going to look really cool, because you've got all the different levels. You've got 3 different levels there. So I think that's going to look really nice for a photo up this way, especially with the canal curving around as well, and a nice wall between the canal and the yard. The beauty of it as well is I can always extend this out a little if I want some more scenery space, because it's not going to need track on it. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight and level and all this, so I can just literally bolt a bit to it. But yeah, I'm thinking of having a couple little sort of lots where you've got the different types of ballast just up here, and then maybe in the corner I'll try and squeeze a little excavator in as if it is there ready to unload the rear wagon. This bit of track will probably go as far as it can without looking stupid, whereas that one will be slightly shorter. You'll see I've used the retaining walls, which used to be on Harefield Road's platform. These are from Model Railway Scenes. I've had these for ages, and they're really nice. They're just resin printed. They're a little bit brittle, so you've got to be careful when you cut them, but obviously I wanted to make this as wide as I could. So with the embankment, obviously to cut it all the way completely, I want a bit of a retaining wall. The only thing is I probably went a bit too much of an angle on the polystyrene, so you can see I've got a bit of space to backfill, but I can fill that up with some foliage and stuff. That's no problem at all. So James was over here last night, and that's how we came out of all this. We were just sort of throwing ideas around between us and messing about with some wagons and seeing what fits, what wouldn't fit. So I did want to have a run round, so like a point here with a head shunt to release the loco so it can go back round if the loco came in forwards. However, it just wouldn't fit. So by the time you've got all that in, it restricts the amount of wagons you can get in the yard. And I want to be able to run trains with at least 10 sort of ballast wagons on them. So they're like a half length sort of train. Obviously it's all a compromise, so we'll see how that really goes. But we worked out you can get between 5 and 6 wagons on this front road until the point, and then you'll get probably 5 on the back road, so you get between 10 and 12 wagons. That's enough for me for a train, so I think that'll work quite nicely. The only other thing is, now that I'm kind of motivated to finish this area and get it looking semi-nice, I need to get the second line running. I need to get the inner loop running, so I'm going to leave this where it is just for the minute. Now I've got an idea of what's happening with it, because I need to wait for the canal piling to turn up and that sort of stuff anyway, in order to a bit more track. In the meantime, I'm going to take this back off. I'm going to get a couple more of the arches in, and then put some standard brick just carrying on, I think. And then I'm going to get this in properly, And on the back side, because we've got quite a bit of a gap on that side, I think I'm just going to use plastercloth and have like a really steep embankment going down instead, because these retaining walls, they do add up, and I need to do a load more on that side. So I'm going to do that now because I really want to get trains running in both directions. It will look really cool, and I want to make use of this nice Tory laser bridge that I got, even though it just falls apart when you look at it because it's so thin. But yeah, I really want to get that going and hopefully get some trains running. So you've all seen people lay track before. I'm not going to bore you with all that. The same as this, you've all seen people cut polystyrene. So I'll come back when the track's laid. This makes me the first customer of the year. Starting off strong.
Should we head on the Gear Scale logo as well?
So we keep quiet about that for now. Cheers.
This is everyone on YouTube.
This is a TikTok later.
More money, more money.
I'm sorry, yeah, that's declined.
Just so we know, it is my birthday shortly, so just saying. This is the service, you get an AGR.
Check out that bum.
And you got a bit here.
You don't get this in Rails of Sheffield.
Okay, down. And the other one hasn't got either.
You've got to do the other one as well, it's part of the
Have
service.
you got?
We'll have to...
Shiny shoes, mister. Any fight for it?
I ain't getting charged for this, anyway. So it's the next day. I ended up getting this far on the arches last night. So these ones are all done now. I'm happy with those. I've painted them up. I've even put the bricks in underneath inside the arch, which I was going to leave, but I thought if you're down at this angle you would see the gap. So I've even done that. I'm pretty impressed with myself for getting around to that. That's the usual job I'd sort of try and get away with leaving. But yeah, I'm really pleased with those. You can see as well they've changed colour. So I painted them with my own mix of blue brick, which is a mix of matte black, it's ultramarine blue, and then it's a little bit of grey mixed in with that. And you can see it's quite a nice shade. Of course, when it's got a mortar wash in, it will change the look of it completely, but I think that'll be pretty bang on when that happens. So I think I can't remember if I mentioned it or not in the last clip, but I also chiselled this away a little more so the bridge can go over just that touch a little more. Found my old Barrow Hill signal box, just stuck that roughly in position where I'm going to have a box. Of course I'll have to level it out, so I'll have to build the land up just slightly underneath it. I'm not going to use this one, this is just here just to give an idea of where the box is going to go. I will sell this one and get something a bit more sort of well suited. In the centre here we've got this little recess, which is a little safe place for track workers and P-way to get out of the way. I have painted the rear. The rear's looking all good, same sort of stuff as you expect. So yeah, I'm quite pleased. So today, before coming down the cabin, I went and visited Anthony and Stevie at AGR Model Railway Store in Letting Buzzard. If you haven't been before, check them out. They do help me out with a lot of stuff, so that's why it goes both ways. I like to give them a shout out. So I finally got myself one of these Dapol semaphore signals to try out. I've also been speaking to James Hudson, DCC Train Automation. You've got to check him out as well. His website is great and his technical knowledge is incredible. I can't thank him enough because he's helped me out a few times. But I've always wanted to try these little semaphore signals. I really like semaphore signalling, and being a train driver, you'd hope that I sort of know how it all works. So I got that one, that bracket signal, just to start off with, and that is going to go down the bottom of the incline, underneath where the S-stock is, and that's going to be the sort of home signal for this signal box. The reason the S-stock is there is because I've lengthened this to a 5-car unit, which is what mine are all going to be now that I've got room in the bay platform. And I wanted it there just to check that if I put a signal in front of this train down here under the bridge, that it's going to clear at the back. And you'll see that happily there is probably room for another car or two. So we've got plenty of space down there, so that's great news. So I'll let you know if that goes all right once I've gone to the next bit, which is what this box is for. So I've got another 4 of these arches to put in, which will take me hopefully up to the end of that board, and then from there on it will just be brick, the same as down here, brick with a little top sort of capping piece on. To go on the back here, as I've mentioned previously, there will be an embankment down because we've got a bit of a gap, as you can see, so we've got space for an embankment there. However, I don't want it to be a massive fall because we don't want anyone hurting themselves. So we've got these little double rail stanchions. You might not recognise these because they now come in a newer packet. I just thought I'd take the old packet basically to do Anthony a favour. But they basically build up into little railings sort of looking items. So they are going to go, well, here will be another top wall the same as this. So they're going to go along here a little bit, just on the very steepest part. So that should look pretty good. And then I've got the usual palisade fencing that's going to run all along the back to kind of frame it all off. So I'll get the signal out of its box and just try and sort of place it roughly where I want it in position. Maybe use a bit of blue tack or something for now, just to give you an idea of where I'm thinking of putting it. So down here is the idea, just before the line dives under the bridge. Now you'll notice the signal is quite high. Obviously I haven't cut the hole in the baseboard yet, so that is the reason. So that signal will drop down quite a bit more than that, and it'll be plenty below the top of that arch. But of course the arches will have brick walls on top as well. I was tempted to try and take it apart and just fit the bracket part to the arches, so it just sort of is stuck to the wall. However, I don't really want to break it, so I think I'll stick with what we've got and see how it looks. Worst case, I can pull it back out and do that anyhow. And you know what I'm like, I don't mind my soldering. So if I do decide to do that, there's 3 little solder pads in there. You can't really see them, but I can quite easily solder some wires on there and then just sort of bodge this in somehow. But yeah, we'll see when it comes to it. But these are really nifty. Hello! Oh, so handily, that hole is tapered. So all I've done, just quickly, is I've attached the signal to the base. I've just poked it up through the hole, and it just about goes tight. So you can see now where the signal's going to live. It's going to be there. So it's going to look quite nice, I think, when you've got a train travelling down the incline towards the bridge. You've just got this little signal at the end. I think that's going to look quite good. So I'm just doing a bit of CAD work just to sort of fill in this gap. That's cardboard aided design. You can see I'm cutting around this, and then basically I'm going to cut around where the gap is, and I'm going to transfer that onto a piece of wood, just a little thin bit of ply, prop it all up, and then obviously I can drill the hole for the signal, and then that will then support the box underneath when it clips up in. So yeah, little tip for you, bit of CAD work, and then transfer that over, should be good. So there's my template, there's my bit of wood, there's my multi-tool. You know what comes next. Well, 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 would you look at that? Good, isn't it? I'm pretty pleased with that, so that'll work nicely. Now I've just got to try and work out where on earth the signal hole's got to go, and obviously support it underneath, but I think that's going to work lovely. So that's that piece in position. I've got a little tiny bit to fill in here, but I've made some little small supports underneath. There's 2 at the back, 1 in the centre and 1 up this end. And it's nice and solid. I've just glue gunned around here basically to give it a little more support, same at the back, because you're not going to see the little bead of glue anyway, because there'll be scenery above that, so don't worry. But that just gives it a bit more support, and it also fills these gaps in, so when I ballast and put scatter down, it won't all fall through. That's basically the idea behind that. And I'll probably run a little bead along here as well, and then of course I'm going to try and fill this in. I'll have to use a little bit of card or something underneath to stop the glue all falling through. But yeah, I'm pleased with that. The signal is in the right sort of place to where I wanted it, so I think that's going to work out perfect. So skipping ahead, as you do, you can see now we've got all the retaining walls in. I've also started getting the walls in this piece, and I've used the multi-tool to just shape this wood. So when I put some plastercloth or whatever I decide to use, I might actually use fiberglass in here. It'll give us a nice slope, so you'll have a bit of an embankment just going up until it meets the walls. So I'll probably extend this one round a little more to sort of match up with that one, and then you'll see we'll have this small gap just to fill in. So that should be pretty good. We have got the inner main line all fitted now. The track's all fitted in. Now that I've sorted this and I'm happy with it, I've got that track in. The track on the incline is in. I've ballasted it just while I could get in there up to about here. I haven't glued this little piece because I've got to put some sleepers in there. So that'll hoover off. But from about here onwards, it's all ballasted. And you can see I've chucked some sort of mud effect scatter in the arches down the bottom there. All I used to fill in, because we had gaps, a bit like this. You can see here we had gaps. So I used some thin card. And then I've gone across there and in with the thin card, and then of course on top with the scatter, it all sort of blends it in. There's a couple little gaps still where I need to come in with a second pass, but that was just to give it basically a base layer. So yeah, they're all obviously painted in a rough blue brick colour that I mixed up myself, just doing it by eye as I usually do. Of course the tops I've got to go along with the silver paint, and I've also got to make some more of these top sections to go on here. Like I say, it's all ballasted. We've got a couple of copper-clad sleepers in here. I need to put one more in, maybe two, but I'll come to that another time because I'm not building this board yet. I'm just getting this section done first. Down the side here, you can see what I meant now about having an embankment. So I've got the polystyrene shaped, and that's going to look all right. The bridge is now glued in place as well. As you can see, it's nice and solid. I've still got to fix the top pieces because it's a bit too flimsy. But like I was saying before, I decided what I want to do with that, but I might just stick with it and just glue it in for now and try not to knock it in the future. We'll see. But famous last words. You can see I put a little filling piece in here as well, much the same as before, a couple of supports, and then the glue gun to fill it all in, and then basically go along with a chisel this way, and then that takes the top of the glue gun raised edge off, and you're just left with a nice flat piece. So obviously that's just going to be filled with scatter anyway, because the track obviously misses that. But yeah, I think it's looking really good. I've just chucked a couple bits of wooden sleeper track in and a curve point there, so you can see where the sidings are going to go. So like I was saying before, I think I mentioned that's going to be a ballast yard in a similar sort of style to Willesden F sidings. So that should take shape soon. But if you come down here, you can see it's going to look really cool with the different levels. Obviously we're on 3 different levels, so you'll be down here for the ballast sidings, and then you've got the inclines coming up, and then you've got the main lines going over the top. So I think that's going to look really good. Just another view of that dapole signal that I've installed then. You can see that now that it's at the right height with the bridge in place, all that, there's a nice bit of clearance there. You can get your fingers in there. So that's pretty good. I have pushed an S-stock down here and it goes underneath the signal bracket, so there's no problem at all with height clearance or anything like that. So I'm quite pleased with the position, and I just think it gives it that extra little bit of interest when you all look down here when it's all finished off. Now onto this side. So my package from Scale Model Scenery has arrived. Considering Royal Mail, it wasn't too bad. So I've got 3 packs of the Canal piling to try in here. If I pan up, it helps in here. This stuff is over a tenner a pop, so it's quite expensive for some laser cut MDF, but I suppose their whole thing is try and get it somewhere else. That's why it is what it is. So I'm going to put these together. You basically get, is it a kit like this? This bit comes out, you shape it as needed. Obviously it will go in there, shape it round, and then you've basically got these individual pieces which you glue on one in every other, just to line up with those lines. And then you've also got a ladder here that you can put in at some place where you desire, so I'll just probably chuck it in the middle, it's a bit easier. So yeah, I'm gonna get this sort of glued in, and I suppose I'll have to bring it out a little bit because you need a tow path. So I'll get that glued in and curved around this way, and then we'll see how it looks when we come back. So you can see there the start of the piling. I did make a big mistake. I glued this straight to the side of this wall and then remembered I need the tow path, so I had to try and really quickly pull it off before it completely stuck, and it pulled all the bricks off of this naturally, but luckily obviously they're going to be obscured anyway, so it doesn't matter. So you can see I've just used a couple bits of strip wood. They are 10mm wide, so 3 bits obviously equals 30mm. It's plenty strong enough. I don't really need anything in the ends. It's not going to go anywhere, and this is eventually going to be glued down anyway. At the minute, obviously it all comes out, so it's quite handy. I can work on it. So obviously I'll fill that in with some card or something like that, something just to give me a base that I can go over it with some sort of textured stuff. Obviously the other side is just straight against the wall because we only need to tape off one side. I did wonder whether to just leave it and deal with it, but then of course I'd have to either build something to go up and over the top, but then it would also have to go over the railway, or you'd have to build another bridge support and have another piece going under for public and horses back in the day to go through. So I thought I'll quickly pull it off and deal with it. But yeah, it's just going to curve around here, and I want basically the piling to go onto this edge so that you can look, it's as narrow as it can possibly be, but you can look down this bit into the canal, and then that end I'm going to have a mirror. So I've ordered some Perspex mirror sheet, so that's going to go in there. I'll cut that down so that it sort of slots in, and then I'll place it accordingly. I might put it at a slight angle so that when you look through like this, you can't see yourself looking back through it. I'll have to play about with it and see what I can do. Obviously it's got to go in front of the support that's run along the bottom at the back, but that should give it a nice bit of depth to it. And then of course either side is going to be embankments, so that shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, we'll get the rest of the piling in, and I suppose once it's in there, I'll quickly pull the bridge out, and then I'll just paint the blue brick inside so that it can permanently go in. I thought I'd just quickly show you the process of building the piling. It's a bit tedious and a bit of a pain in the backside. You also end up with very sticky fingers. However, it does go together pretty easily. It's just time consuming, but it's all worth the effort. But yeah, all in all though, the Scale Model Series piling kit isn't too bad. It's a bit of a faff to go together, just because there's so many of these piles to put in, because obviously it comes flat and you've got to then build it up. But I'm happy with the overall look of it and the finish. I obviously have to give it a bit of a paint and weather up when it's all sort of complete and ready to go. But as for that, if I see piles any time soon after this, I think I have to consult the doctor. So that's the canal bridge in place. It's all painted up as it needs to be, and it's blocked off at the rear for when I eventually do pour the resin. We've got the little path in there, and there's a graffiti transfer from Scale Model Scenery, though they're not very good because of the back end film, but you won't really see it too well in there anyway because it's a bit dark. However, like I've mentioned a few times, I am putting a mirror inside here, so that should lighten up, because the mirror should only be about halfway back in the bridge, hence the very rear isn't painted. So the mirror is going to be sort of a third of the way up the graffiti, so that the graffiti will probably carry on, or look like it does. So that will lighten that up. But now I'm just doing this embankment. I've chopped this piece of wood back. This is the sandwich piece that goes between this board and this one to adjust the height and let the dowels go in. So I've chopped that back to sort of suit. I've shaped some polystyrene, as you can see, and then there's a few bits where I've gone over with card. I've glued card in place and shaped all that, so it's got a bit of a curve coming down, because I figured that would probably work better than just using polystyrene. And now I was going to go over plastercloth, however I'm going to try something different. So what I've got is something I've used a lot in the past, which is fiberglass filler for cars. So the advantage of this, in my thinking, is that if I plaster bandage this, it's going to take about 2 days to dry. If I use the fiberglass paste, it'll take 20 minutes and it'll be absolutely rock hard, and it'll really sort of help sort of stabilize it all, because the plaster cloth is still a little bit weak. So bits like this where I've got a gap, I'm just going to paste over this to fill it in, and that'll be nice and strong then. But yeah, I'm going to try that now, and we'll see how we get on. So if you've never seen it before, this is the paste, and then it's a hardener. It's a 2-part setup. So I'm just mixing a load up. Obviously I've got the hardener there, you can see, and then I'm basically going to spread that over this area and let that dry. So there you go, I've removed the tape before it fully dries, just so it'll actually come off. And then there's just a few little small bits that I've had to take off. Just obviously remember to wipe your fingers off, because it's dangerous stuff. But like I say, that's filled in all the gaps. We had a lot of gaps down here, so that's now nicely smoothed that little flat edge off. The idea there was that a boat could park up and you'd be able to get off, but obviously you can't go anywhere. Either that or there'd be an entrance gate up this side somewhere. But yeah, I'm gonna have to wait for that to dry now. It might take sort of half hour or so in here because it's quite cold. However, hopefully that'll dry, it'll be nice and rock hard, and then chuck some paint over it. I probably won't sand it down, to be honest, because once grass is over it and stuff like that, you won't notice. Being a bit rough will probably look better. But yeah, hopefully that'll work. So we'll have to just cross fingers and hope for the best. There we go then, that embankment is now sorted, and I'm just waiting for the paint to go off. Then we can look at getting some static grass on there. So just so you're aware, the fiberglass took about half hour to dry. It sort of got to a point about 20 minutes in where it was still tacky, and I thought, oh dear, I've not put enough hardener in. Then suddenly I noticed one section of it started going matte, losing its shine. Touched that and it was touch dry. So I got the hairdryer, chucked the hairdryer over it, and then 5 minutes later, bam, it's all solid as a rock. And then I've just gone over it with some burnt umber paint, and here we are. So I'm pretty pleased with that. I think in future, for a little speed build, I'll use that method again. Going further around here, I've got to do those embankments there. I'll use plaster bandage for these bits and then just leave it overnight sort of thing. But I just wanted to get this bit looking pretty cool for now. I wanted to see some progress myself, so thought I'd try that method. But yeah, pretty happy. So I'm just going to static grass it now. Now, after watching an Everard Junction video, I noticed that he does it in sort of blotches, and that gives him a bit of mud showing through. So I'm going to try the same thing, as you can see here, a bit along the front as well, and hopefully it comes out not looking too bad. So there's the first layer done. You can see it's nice and patchy, how I like it. I think that's come out not too bad. So now I'm going to go over and put some longer grass in, and hopefully that will sort of fill it out a bit. So that's that little embankment done, and you can see I've started with the polystyrene to fill all of this section in. I'm really pleased with how that's come out. I love the little look of the muddy sort of path where people have got off their narrow boats and been walking along it. The tree hides the scenic break quite well, and I've put some earthy scatter around the bottom of it to give that sort of nice effect that it's not got grass growing underneath it, because that's a bit wrong in my opinion. And yeah, we've got a good variety of different colour tones and different textures in there, and I'm really pleased with how it's looking. I think from down here, the train's going over the top, that's going to look fantastic. So I'll probably put a bit of fencing up there eventually, and then of course I've got to blend the background in as well with a small little bit of embankment, and then yeah, I think that's going to be really good. So here you can see I'm doing the other side of the canal. What I've done is put some strips of card together to form a sort of wall around this side, because basically the scenery, the landscape is going to drop off, as you can probably tell. So I've done that so that we can get it kind of flat, so I can basically come across with the sort of scraper kind of thing you use with the fiberglass, and I can come across the top of it to flatten it off, as you can see there. And then all the excess filler, fiberglass, sorry, that I'd left over in the pot has obviously created the little embankment. It does go down slightly lower than the level of the rest of it. However, I'm not concerned about that. At the end of the day, this section is only going to really be a bit of wasteland anyway, because the wagons are going to be over here. You're going to have a handler here, like a big bucket scoop sort of jobby. So then this is just going to be sort of either piles of ballast or whatever. It doesn't really matter too much. So you can see now the fiberglass is all set on this side. I've just taped it off, and I've now got this awesome little Goodwood Scenics kit, which I pinched from Ollie at Wardle Road. He's taken his layout to bits, so he doesn't need this anymore, and it's exactly what I was after, so he's done me a right solid there. You can see I fit the railings, which support the corrugated sheets, and they're actually metal, so they're nice and strong. Even if you catch them, you're not going to break them, so there we are, really cool. Fit them all the way along, so we've got one section here, a second section, and then a small piece there, and then as I say, these nice corrugated sheets, which he's already weathered up in a nice rusty sort of shade, they'll sit along there. I might cut them up into individuals so they're all at jaunty angles and stuff, but they'll sit along there and they'll separate the canal off from the yard. So I'm pretty buzzing with those. Right, moving on then, you can see that I've got the static grass all sorted over here now. I've left this patch obviously for the yard that's going to happen. Over there I've started putting some static grass on these areas. I've put the extra bit of wall in that was missing here, and down the gradient down here we've got some static grass as well. So I'm going to carry on with that. But for now, today in the post, this finally arrived. Been waiting for this for a little while. This is 3mm plastic, which is a mirror. Hello. So the idea with this is, obviously I'm going to cut this to suit the shape and size. It's going to go just inside the canal bridge, and then that will make it look as if it is carrying on into the distance. I'll try and use the minimum amount possible, because I'm also thinking of trying to incorporate it over here somehow. See, if I was to put it there, you see it gives the impression that the rest of the bridge is there. So I might do that and have it at this sort of height, so you can just see the bridge and a little bit of embankment carrying on, but you don't get the station and the fence, the bridge, sorry, all in. So just go up to that sort of height, and then above that can be obviously back scene. But I think that would give a really nice effect. Obviously it looks like the road's carrying on. If you move it down here, again, you get a bit more road, and so on. So yeah, I might try and do something with that. It might be a bit of a pain in the backside and not worth it, but we'll see. But yeah, for now I'm going to cut this down with a Stanley blade, using a card template first, and then it's going to go in here and we'll see how it looks. So there we are then, there's the canal with the mirror fitted. As I'm sure you'll agree, it looks fantastic. It really does work well. It took a long time to get the mirror shaped so that it would just be a sort of press fit. It's not glued in there, it's just very tight so that it doesn't really move. You can obviously see, if I go over here, at certain angles you can see your own reflections. You can just about see my fingers there. But if you look at the bridge straight on, you don't notice. Especially when this fence is all properly finished and in. Obviously it's just resting against it for now. Then that's obviously going to obscure your view as well, because otherwise you would see the beginnings of the yard down here. But I'm super pleased with that. You can also see, if I zoom in, you can just about tell. The mirror is a bit sort of frosted up at the minute because it's quite cold down here, but where I placed it, it makes it look like the graffiti sort of carries on and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm super pleased with that. It's a really nice sort of technique for making it not look like it just goes into a blank piece of card. All that's left now is to put the bridge supports on the other side, and then of course I've got that gap, which you can see there. There's the end of the tunnel area. I've got that gap to fill in and then fit some scenery. But as well as sorting the canal, I have, as you can see, ballasted, fitted all this bit of track. This piece of track isn't ballasted, and this isn't plasterclothed and scenic, because I've not fitted the droppers on this bit of track yet. So I just need this bit removable just for now, just while I put the droppers in and go through the baseboard. So that's going to be something I tackle in the next video. As well as the rest of the canal, I did get some deep pour murky resin off Anthony at AGR for my birthday, so thank you very much for that, Ant. That will come in great use for this. So I'll probably build up the bank slightly with some N-gauge ballast, because it's nice and thin, nice and small, sorry. And then on top of that, probably use the airbrush to paint it a nice murky brown. I've got some details from Goodwood Scenics that Ollie from Model Road kindly gave me. Bits like washing machines, that sort of stuff. So that'll all go in there as well, and then fill it all up. The only problem with the mirror is I can't really put a canal boat down here. So if I just to show you, pretend that was a canal boat. If I put it there, you're gonna have another one in the distance, so it's gonna look a bit weird. So my thing was, if I do put an narrowboat in, I'll put it right up in this corner, just like a low relief one, as if it's moored up. And then obviously looking through the canal, you won't usually see it until you go right the way over there. And even then you can barely see it. So that's my thinking, is just have one right in this corner, because obviously the curve helps with all that. But yeah, that's a plan for next time. So that's going to be in the next video. But yeah, it's come together really well, this area. The bridge is looking cool. Obviously I've got to fix it still. We've got the semaphore signal down there, looking good. I've still got to do some cleaning up. Fix some of the overspill from ballasting, because I did it a bit back to front this time. I put static grass down and ballasted after. So you'll notice on these bits in particular, they're quite messy. However, I did very carefully glue the ballast down on these areas, so that the bits on the outer edges, you can see there, if I touch them, that some of them, they do fly around because they're loose and they're not actually glued down, just the main bulk is. So I'm going to come along here with the hoover with, I've got a nice a nice soft bristled paintbrush, so I'll just agitate it with a hoover. That'll all come up, and then it's going to get another good layer of static grass anyway. But I'm sure you'd agree that area is looking really quite something now. The only other change is over here. You'll notice that I did in the end get the back scene off, just so that it matches this bit for now. As I said before, at some stage I will redo my nice scenic back scene, and it probably will make a reappearance, but for now we're going to go with the blue. And in the meantime, I will go over this embankment and this front one with static grass so that it matches the rest. So that will sort of tie it all in nicely. From there we use the rubberized horsehair and a bit of scatter to sort of build up the foliage, and yeah, like just make it all blend in basically. Now another problem is I've been obviously putting the track in, so to do that I had to put this board up against Hairfield's board, so it goes on the left hand side of here. I'll put in a picture now so you can see what I'm on about. But the issue that leaves me with is you then end up with this massive piece of wood, of course, for that to butt up against it. Because obviously it goes here, so you've got this massive piece sitting there. So I'm thinking how to do a scenic break, and realistically the only way is to put in yet another road bridge. So I'm going to rejig this, which is what basically it was leading me on to with the clearance side of things. So I'm actually going to cut this down, and it's going to come back, so the tunnel mouths are somewhere down here instead. So I'm going to cut about that much off it, roughly. The same amount I cut off, I'm going to use to build a road bridge. So this incline here, I only really put this in just to sort of test it out and stuff. Hence I didn't finish it. It was just there to kind of test the waters and see how I felt about it. So I'm thinking that now I may cut this off, and I'll get another piece of ply and build it all up so that the road continues along here, maybe dips down a little bit, but then could come up again slightly, and then it will curve round here in a nice sweeping bridge and then go off into the distance. And then I'll have another sort of a T-junction here, so you can go across the bridge, or you can carry on straight, and that will take you, of course, into the other bit of the layout when it's at home like this. So basically, when the lift out section is down, you'll have the road continuing across and round the back there, or it can go over a bridge and into the back scene. But when it's up against Harefield, it will just go over the bridge, or they'll be into the back scene this way as well. So that's the way I'm sort of thinking. So obviously the signal box, if I do use this one, which I don't really want to because they're too common, will have to come this way. And then of course the tunnel mouths will go that way. So basically it means that I will keep the same amount of scenic area track wise. It's just going to shift everything about, and it's going to work a lot better in the different configurations. So I guess that brings me on to the end of this probably quite long-winded video. I'd just like to say thank you for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It's free, it doesn't cost you a penny. All that you have to do is listen to me waffle on for an hour. But until next time, hopefully we get a bit more progress done. Fingers crossed you get a bit more progress on your own layouts as well. It'd be nice to see them or hear about them. Let me know in the comments down below what you're up to, what you're working on. But yeah, I'll leave you with a couple shots just to finish off of trains running around. And I guess I'll see you in the next one. See you later.